This is the Less Insurance Dependence podcast show with my good friend Gary Takacs and myself, Naren Arulrajah.
We appreciate your listenership, your time, and most of all, we appreciate your intention to reduce insurance dependence in your practice. Our goal is to provide information that will help you successfully reduce insurance dependence and convert your practice into a thriving and profitable dental practice that provides you with personal, professional, and financial satisfaction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Less Insurance Dependence podcast, the official podcast of the Reducing Insurance Dependence Academy, www.rid.academy. Membership to the Academy is a gift from Gary and I in appreciation for your listenership. Tomorrow is our big day, our Reducing Insurance Dependence Summit. Hope to see you there. If you still haven't signed up and you're thinking about dropping PPO plans, go to www.rid.academy and register. We may have a few last-minute spots left. Now, today we have an exciting topic, and I am Naren, your co-host. The topic we're going to be covering today is staying motivated as you go out of network. We have a quick announcement to make, but we'll do that at the end. This is something we haven't done in like 4 years. We are doing it again, but I just want you to hold on. I'll talk about what this big announcement is at the end of the episode. Gary, before I jump into today's topic, I know I am excited about the RIDA Summit tomorrow. Your thoughts?
Yeah, really excited about this. Our fourth annual RIDA Summit. And every year it's basically doubled in size. We expect the same thing this year. And we've got an amazing agenda for you. You know, it's 5 hours of CE. We have keynote speakers. We have panels. We have one of my favorite segments, which is success stories, where a dentist will share their experience of going out of network. They'll share what worked, what they might do differently now that they've been through it. And they'll provide hopefully some wonderful motivation for you that shows you that you can do this. So come join us. It's tomorrow. Man, if you'd like 5 hours of free CE, be sure to register. Naren, go ahead and give that URL address again.
rid.academy, and you can sign up right from that website.
Awesome. Hope to see you there.
Staying motivated as you go out of network. I think that's a really, really good topic to cover because both Gary and I have now together experienced, literally dozens and dozens, if not more than 100 practices that have dropped PPO plans since we started working together 6 years ago. And I know some people breeze through it, others struggle through it. And when we talk about staying motivated, it's not just the doctor, it's the entire team, right? And these practices typically are coming from, 20 years of just being a PPO practice. So they know how to do that inside out in their sleep. They're almost like institutionalized when it comes to running that PPO practice. So how do you deal with change? How do you stay motivated in this uncertain times? And not just you, the owner, but everyone involved. So Gary, let's dive in. What are some of the lessons you have learned? What are some of the things you have seen? And then let's obviously get into some best practices and tips.
Yeah, this is a really important topic because staying motivated, this, if you think about the project of reducing insurance dependence, and notice that we call it reducing insurance dependence instead of going fee for service, because every time you successfully resign from a PPO plan, you've improved your practice. You don't have to go all the way to fee for service to see significant improvement in your practice. Of course, I always tell my clients, if your goal is to go fee for service, then I'll be your biggest cheerleader because that's the best way. And most of our clients do end up going all the way to fee for service. But, most of you will know that I've shared in past episodes that my fitness activity of choice is I'm a long distance runner. I'm an endurance athlete. I do marathons, half marathons, and triathlons. And when you think about the exercise of going out of network, it's more like a marathon than it is a 50-yard sprint. And it's a longer project. Now, it could be a 5K for some of you. 5K is 3.1 miles. It could be a 10K at 6.2 miles. Could be a half marathon 13.1 miles. And for some of you, it'll be a marathon. And so it's important as the leader of the practice, and I'm addressing this to the doctors, as the leader of the practice, you have got to be the chief motivation officer, CMO. Usually that term means chief marketing officer.
Yes.
But in this case, I'll call it the chief motivation officer. And, I remember, my first long distance race. And I remember feeling like, oh man, this is a long way. I'm running out of gas. And that can happen with your motivation as you're going out of network, with plans. So realize that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And offices that have taken the 100-yard dash routine, I'll stick with my analogy, meaning they said, heck with it, I'm just going to send a letter to all my patients and bail. That has worked, by the way. We have clients in our client base. We don't suggest that approach, but we've had clients that have done that out of frustration. But the byproduct of treating it as a 100-yard sprint is that you will lose more patients. And I don't think any of you really want to lose more patients. You want to retain as many of your existing patients as possible. And so staying motivated on your side is very, very, very important. And realize that your patients are going to receive this in a lot of different ways. There will be some patients, and we wish they were all this way, that will say, Doc, whatever you do is fine. I really appreciate the way you guys take care of me, the quality of care you provide, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm on your side. I wish all the patients were that way. There are some patients that are that way.
Right.
And others will have legitimate questions. And one of the things that you can do, doctor, as a leader of your practice with your team, is to help prepare your patients to get a lot of questions. They're going to get questions. And it's really important to look at those questions non-judgmentally. It's kind of easy to be judgmental in this process. It's easy, but it's not productive to be judgmental. To think that, oh, well, that patient doesn't really care. They're just giving me reasons why they're going to go somewhere else. It's kind of easy to frame that approach. And pretty soon, if you start framing that approach, you assume anybody that's asking a question is being a difficult patient. And that's not true. Remember the DISC, if you're a regular listener to Less Insurance Dependence podcast, we've talked about the DISC, the DISC personality styles. And, this applies very definitely to the project of successfully resigning from PPO plans, because the patients whose dominant style is D or I, they don't have many questions. That's just not in their nature. They make decisions very quickly. They don't need many details. They might ask you, so can I still choose your office for my care? Can I use those benefits here? And will you file my claims for me? And of course, the answer to those three questions are, Naren, the answer to those three questions are?
The answer to those three questions are absolutely.
Yes, yes, and yes.
To make your life better. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Mm-hmm.
The S's and C's, by nature of their DNA, are wired to ask you more questions. It's not, they're not choosing to be difficult. It's their nature. It's their nature. And so be prepared for that and treat it non-judgmentally. The S's will have many questions, but the underlying temperament of an S patient is they love you, and you just give them a reason to stay and they will stay. Now the C's will have all the questions, the engineers. They'll have, when I say engineers, they don't have to be an engineer by their job. Many of them actually are. But what I mean is that they're very detail oriented. They think like an engineer, whether they have that as a job or not. And they will have all the questions. And just when you think there couldn't be any more questions, they have a few more. And if you just stick with the C's, you stick with them and answer their questions, they're very loyal and they're likely to stay. So one of the things you can do as a leader of the practice is to help prepare your team members for the fact that they're going to get questions. And let them know, that, hey, it's part of the game, and let's just stick with them. Some other things you can do is I think it's a human dynamic, and the human dynamic is we tend to remember the negative things and we forget the positive things. And what I mean by that, every day in your practice, as you're having the heads up conversation, as you're talking to your patients, there will be positive interactions with your patients. Just the other day, one of our office managers called me and she said, Gary, I just had to call you and tell you this. I think you'll be tickled to hear this, but one of our patients, I won't use his name, but let's call him George. George, now we had the heads up conversation with him, letting him know nothing's changing today, but effective this date will no longer be a network. And this office had already determined what the out-of-pocket expense for an adult hygiene appointment was going to be. And so George asked the question, well, is it going to cost me more, after May 1st, hypothetically? And so the office manager said, yes, George, we did find out with your particular plan, it is going to cost you a little bit more. Your out-of-pocket expense for an adult hygiene appointment, after May 1st is going to be $42. George then said, will that be for every hygiene appointment? And of course, the answer is yep. And he said, well, let's see, $42. I come twice a year. That's $84. That's Starbucks money. I'm not going anywhere. I love you guys. Anyway, the office manager had to call me and tell me that because she just thought it was so cool the way the patient expressed that. Now, the reason I'm telling you that story is that, Doctor, I want you to start to cultivate those positive stories, collect those positive stories from your team members. And in the morning huddle, not necessarily every morning, but share some of those stories with your entire team, because not everyone's going to hear that from a patient. Maybe it was just the office manager that heard that from the patient. But we want to share those positive stories with all your team members. It's just like when we get a 5-star review, it's a good idea to read those reviews in your morning huddle to everyone, because not all of your team members look at your reviews every day. Well, same thing here. When you get something positive happening, be sure to share it with your team members so they know. And that momentum can kind of take you from being a flat spot emotionally where the team's not feeling too good about it and can lift them up. Second tip that I'm going to have for you is always, always, always follow the WIFM concept, WIIFM. WIFM, I like to jokingly say, is my favorite radio station. Not a radio station, although it sounds like it could be ending in FM. WIIFM is an acronym that means what's in it for me. And by me, I'm talking about, Doctor, what's in it for your team members. Constantly remind these all of your team members, what's in it for them as you navigate this successfully. Think about that for a minute. Think how uplifting that can be. What are some of the things we could talk about as what's in it for them? How about, the stronger the practice is financially? If we quit giving away 45% to the fat cats at insurance companies, we have a stronger practice. Stronger practice means we all benefit from that. We can also talk about when we start attracting patients who are choosing us for reasons other than we're on their insurance, then all of a sudden we can have less of these kind of difficult conversations with patients where they're only interested in having something done when it's covered by insurance. Think about this example. Let's say somehow you're in network with a plan. Let's call it Delta, because they're the 5,000-pound bully. And somehow one of your patients got scheduled for the second hygiene appointment this year, 5 months and 29 days after their first hygiene appointment. That can happen. We try to have safeguards in place and try to not have that happen, but it can happen. If that happens, Naren, what's going to happen to that claim that the office submitted?
Denied.
Yep, denied. But who's the patient typically mad at?
The team and the doctor, right? Because
they're mad at your office. They're mad at the team member. They're not mad at Delta for coming up with that stupid rule. They're not mad at their benefit supervisor at work who bought the plan with that rule in place. They're mad at you. And where most of the difficult conversations happen in dental offices? It's around confusion about what the patient thinks their insurance is going to pay.
Mm.
They think insurance is going to pay everything. And of course, that's rarely the case. But when there is a copayment, even if it's a minor copayment, who are they upset with? They're upset with your team members. And remind your team members that, we're going through a challenge right now as we make this transition. But imagine us popping through the other side when patients appreciate us, tell us how much they bring us bakery. They give us plenty of notice if they need to change an appointment. That's another thing, Naren. For hygiene, typically with insurance patients, it's paid at 100%. How much is the patient paying out of pocket when you're in network for a typical hygiene appointment? 0.
Zero.
How much do they value it?
Zero.
I mean, it could be they value it, but many times they value it at the amount that and they'll be very routinely canceled, no show. They
Yeah.
they don't have any skin in the game.
Yeah.
What if that changes? I'm noticing, Naren, and maybe this is something we can apply. I'm noticing that more and more restaurants are requiring a non-refundable deposit to book a reservation during peak hours. It might be $35, it might be $50, depends on the caliber of the restaurant.
Right.
It's non-refundable, and it's right there. Even on Open Table, there will be a fine print in Open Table that this reservation requires a $35 non-refundable deposit. Now, why are they doing that? To reduce cancellation and no-shows, because now someone has some skin in the game.
Right.
And I believe that once we navigate towards reducing insurance dependence, we get a whole different perspective from the patient, where it's more of appreciation. Thank you for taking care of me, instead of upset around what insurance pays or what it doesn't pay. But I want you to remember, maybe in closing thoughts, Doctor, I want you to remember that the mood and the tone in your practice comes from you. You can't delegate that to someone else. If you come in the morning dragging your chin on the carpet about everything that's wrong in your practice, that's exactly what's going to be reflected back on you from your team. So if you want your team members to be motivated through it, you've got to model that for them. So come in with something positive every day. Remind your team members what's in it for them, and just be the voice of optimism and hope as we navigate through this. And you'll watch that being reflected back on your team. Now, Naren, I saved some time for you to talk about this event that's coming up on February 1st. I'll let you close with that. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So this is, we are doing it for the first time since COVID. The last event we had literally got canceled like just the month of COVID, I think February of 2020.
Yeah, we did the last live event late February 2020 in Atlanta. Yes. And we had a whole schedule of events happening in 2020. And of course, they had to be canceled because of the restrictions on travel and safety.
Right. So, so we are coming back with some live events. The very first one is going to be in Austin, Texas. And it's the Thriving Dentist Live Workshop, of course, featuring yours truly, Gary Takacs, our host, our expert when it comes to building thriving practices. And the subtitle of the particular event is Grow Your Practice to Full Potential and Achieve an Effective Work-Life Balance, the blueprint to kickstart your year in 2025. Perfect timing, February 1st, 9 to 5 p.m. local time, which is Central Time, City of Austin. The link to register, and we have advanced pricing for those who register early, is thrivingdentist.com/Austin.
We've got some cool early bird pricing. You'll get 8 hours of CE. We chose Austin strategically. It's somewhat in the middle of the country, at least as East-West goes, it's in the middle of the country. It's also a great city. If you haven't been to Austin, you owe it yourself to visit Austin. So the course itself is on a Saturday. I would encourage you to come early and stay late if you've never experienced Austin. For those of you that have experienced Austin, you'll want to come early and stay late because you know how much it has to offer. But come join us. 8 hours of drinking from a fire hose about developing a thriving practice. And remember that last point. We're going to talk about creating a thriving practice and at the same time have a very strong goal of helping you achieve an effective work-life balance. Maybe the most important CE that you might take in 2025. Come join us. And Naren, again, they can register thrivingdentist.com/Austin.
Correct.
Yep, come join us. Well, on that note, let me simply say thank you all for the privilege of your time. Remember, stay motivated and work on keeping your team motivated as you go through this as well. Naren and I look forward to connecting with you on the next Less Insurance Dependence podcast.